It's not just Wall Street feeling the heat. On the quiet main streets of small-town America, something's breaking, and it's not making national headlines. The local hardware store, the family-run clothing boutique, the corner kitchenware shop, all are fighting to stay afloat. Not because of poor service or competition from Amazon, but because the cost of simply restocking their shelves has soared. And it all ties back to tariffs. Tariffs that were meant to hurt China, but are quietly bleeding out American businesses in towns with no lobbyists, no bailout plans, and no second chances. Today, we go behind the storefront glass to hear from the owners living this crisis, one freight bill at a time. In the town of Montrose, Colorado, population under 20,000, there's a shop that's been open for 3 generations. It sells hardware, kitchen tools, garden supplies, the kind of place where the owner knows your name and your grandpa's favorite brand of shovel. But last month, they quietly removed over 50 items from their shelves. Not because of theft, not because of low demand, but because they couldn't afford to restock. Across rural America, small business owners are staring down a cruel arithmetic. The cost of inventory has climbed dramatically over the past year, even for basic imported items, thanks in large part to tariffs on goods coming from China and other trade-targeted nations. What once cost a shop owner $10 now costs $13 or $14. It may not sound catastrophic, but for Main Street businesses that rely on tight margins and small volume orders, these hikes can mean the difference between profit and red ink. In Missouri, a shopkeeper told us that the same box of enamel cookware she bought last year for $250 now runs closer to $320. She hasn't changed her prices yet, afraid customers will just walk away. People aren't splurging anymore, she says. They come in asking about a product, then they check their phone for Amazon's price and leave. The issue isn't just about competing with e-commerce giants. Many of these businesses survived that challenge over the last decade. What's changed in 2025 is that the base cost of simply staying in business is rising faster than consumer demand. The tariffs, ranging from 10 to 40% on a wide range of goods and components, have created a ripple effect in small-town economies. Business owners who once relied on trusted suppliers are now being told the prices have gone up. No negotiation, no workaround. In places like Iowa, Nebraska, and rural Pennsylvania, even American-made items can be more expensive now because they use parts or materials that fall under tariff restrictions. In Millfield, Ohio, a former mining town turned quiet commuter hub, the last independent appliance store closed in April. The owner cited a 27% increase in wholesale prices over 12 months. "We'd have had to charge more than Walmart to survive," he said, and we all know how that ends. The pain doesn't stop with merchandise. Freight costs are up, insurance premiums are higher, and utility bills continue to rise. All of it eating away at the delicate balance that local stores once maintained. For many, the survival model is now about cutting staff, slashing inventory, or shortening hours, none of which inspire confidence in foot traffic. Meanwhile, consumers are also tightening their belts. Rural wages haven't kept up with inflation. With gas, groceries, and rent eating into household budgets, people are buying only what they need, and they're seeking it at the lowest possible price. That leaves little room for a quaint gift shop or a mid-tier tool supplier to compete. This is the quiet crisis. There are no mass headlines, no breaking news ticker. But for the men and women who turn their store signs to open each morning, the question looming louder every day is, how much longer can they keep doing it? To understand why these local businesses are getting squeezed, we have to go back, not just to the warehouse, but to Washington. Over the last several years, US trade policy has shifted dramatically. What began under the Trump administration with sweeping tariffs on Chinese goods, framed as a way to bring manufacturing back to American soil, has only evolved and expanded. The Biden administration, despite initial skepticism, maintained many of the same levies. And by 2025, with Trump back in office, tariffs have surged again under a policy banner of America First 2.0. The goal was to punish China. The reality? American small businesses are paying the bill. Here's why. Even products labeled Made in the USA often rely on imported components, screws, wires, magnets, rubber seals, sourced from Chinese factories that now face tariffs as high as 40%. The importer pays the tariff at the port. That cost gets passed to the distributor, then to the retailer, and finally lands, with interest, on the shoulders of the consumer or business owner trying to make a living selling the item. Larger corporations can buffer these shocks. They negotiate long-term supplier contracts, shift operations overseas, or secure tariff exemptions through legal teams. Small-town shop owners? They don't have trade lawyers. They have a local supplier who just raised their prices, and no explanation beyond it's the new cost. Add to that a global supply chain still not fully recovered from the pandemic, and you've got a system with no slack. Shipping prices remain volatile, warehouse costs are elevated, and domestic alternatives, when they exist, often cost more than the tariffed imports ever did. According to a July 2025 report from the US Chamber of Commerce, small businesses disproportionately bear the brunt of trade restrictions. The report found that 62% of small retailers saw profit margins shrink due to tariff-related costs over the last 18 months. Notably, 85% had no plan to raise prices, fearing they would lose customers already struggling with inflation. Even sectors traditionally thought of as local, hardware, farming tools, household goods, depend heavily on global sourcing. A wrench assembled in Kansas might still rely on steel parts from Taiwan and a handle grip molded in Guangdong. There's also the psychological shift in consumer behavior. Americans are not only price sensitive right now, they're cautious. They're researching before they walk into a store. They're comparing everything to what's online. In a tight economy, even the perception that something might be overpriced is enough to stall a sale. Tariffs fuel that perception, even if the shop owner has little choice. And finally, there's the broader policy disconnect. In Washington, tariffs are seen as a lever, an economic tool to assert pressure on rivals or incentivize domestic growth. But in practice, that lever often pulls on the wrong people. It's not the multinational conglomerates who feel it first. It's the woman running the gift shop in Iowa, the hardware dealer in Arkansas, the single dad managing a parts store in rural Nevada. When tariffs are debated in Capitol Hill hearings, these names don't come up. But they should. They should, because they're the ones doing the math every week, deciding whether it's worth it to keep their shop open at all. The impact of these rising costs is not evenly distributed. In fact, the weight is falling heaviest on the shoulders of people and places that already had the least margin for error. Start with rural business owners, the hardware store in Nebraska, the auto parts shop in Kentucky, the outdoor gear supplier in Montana. These shops tend to rely on smaller inventory orders, more specialized products, and long-standing relationships with wholesalers who are now tacking on new tariff-driven fees with every shipment. Unlike big box chains or urban stores with high volume and broader supplier networks, rural shops can't pivot quickly or negotiate better terms. When prices jump, they either pay or go without. In agricultural towns, the situation is especially painful. Farmers, already under strain from fuel and equipment costs, rely on local shops for fast replacement parts. But those shops now report they can't stock the breadth of items they used to. A delay of even a few days can mean real economic losses for growers. And when one piece of the system breaks, the irrigation hose, the motor belt, the pressure valve, the consequences ripple through the season. Then there are low-income communities where local retail isn't just a convenience, it's a necessity. In places without nearby Walmarts or Targets, these small shops provide food staples, household goods, and school supplies. But now, they're facing a double bind. Their costs are up, and their customers can't afford to absorb the difference. The result? Shrinking shelves, cut hours, and eventual closure. One community in southern West Virginia saw its only independently owned clothing store shut down this spring. The owner told the local paper that her final inventory order had cost nearly 30% more than the same shipment just 2 years prior. "We didn't even bother putting up a going out of business sign," she said. Everyone in town already knew. The crisis also reaches minority-owned businesses. According to a report by the Brookings Institution, Black and Latino small business owners are more likely to operate in lower-margin retail sectors and less likely to have access to capital that can cushion cost shocks. For them, the combination of tariffs and inflation isn't an inconvenience, it's a survival threat. Even new entrepreneurs, often celebrated as the backbone of rural revitalization, are reconsidering their dreams. In a recent survey by the National Federation of Independent Business, nearly 40% of rural business starters said they had delayed opening or expanding due to concerns over sourcing costs, inventory instability, and unpredictable pricing from suppliers. These aren't hypothetical worries. They're stopping ideas from becoming reality. And this isn't just about business owners. The fallout touches the entire community. When a shop closes, it means fewer jobs, fewer reasons to walk through downtown, less tax revenue for local services. A town loses more than a storefront. It loses part of its economic identity. The shutdowns create a chain reaction. A diner loses its lunch crowd when the nearby hardware store shutters. The printing shop sees less foot traffic after the craft supply store disappears. The town newspaper has fewer advertisers. It's not a recession you see on Wall Street. It's a slow erosion happening block by block, county by county. If there's one group weathering this storm better than others, it's the national chains, many of which are expanding into areas once dominated by independent businesses. They can afford to undercut prices, absorb shocks, and draw in customers with consistent stock and deep discounts. But the cost is cultural. As independent businesses disappear, so do the personalities, the relationships, the familiar faces that once defined the local economy. So who's affected? Everyone. But especially the people who never had much room to fall, and now find the safety net pulled away entirely. In these small towns, you don't need a survey or a spreadsheet to feel the damage. You just need to walk into a store and talk to the person behind the counter. Laurie Miller, who runs a home goods and kitchenware shop in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, doesn't sugarcoat it. I've stopped ordering half my inventory. What's the point? I used to get these ceramic pots for $12. Now they're $21. I'd have to charge $30 to make a profit, and no one in this town is paying $30 for a flower pot. She says her customers aren't angry, they're just quietly walking away. They say, "I'll think about it," and they never come back. I don't blame them. Everyone's cutting back. I just don't know how long I can keep opening the door each morning. In Lubbock, Texas, Raymond Garza has owned a small hardware and parts store for over 20 years. We've dropped over 100 SKUs, he says. Stuff like replacement garden hoses, valve fittings, even basic screws, they're not worth stocking anymore. By the time they get here, I'd have to sell them for twice what I used to. That's not a business model. That's a slow death. He says the worst part is having to explain to loyal customers why he no longer carries what they've come to rely on. They look at me like I've changed, but I haven't. The numbers have. In Toledo, Ohio, Angela Kim, who owns a stationery and school supply store, tells a similar story. Our back-to-school sales used to be a huge boost. Not anymore. Parents now go online or drive 40 miles to a discount chain because we can't match prices on backpacks or calculators. And if we try, we lose money. Every year we're stuck between disappointing our customers or bankrupting ourselves. She's had to let go of her 2 part-time employees and cut store hours. This wasn't the dream, she says, but now I just want to hold on. In Dyersburg, Tennessee, Marcus and Elena, who run a family-owned farm supply shop, say they're down to 1 distributor. The others dropped us when we couldn't hit minimum order thresholds, Marcus says. Now we're getting hit with tariffs, shipping delays, and no room to negotiate. It's like we're stuck in a penalty box for being small. He says the most painful moment came when a long-time customer drove an hour to a big box chain instead. He told us flat out he had to do what's best for his budget. I respect that, but it hurt. Even local officials are feeling the pressure. In Ada, Oklahoma, the Chamber of Commerce director told us, "We've lost 5 businesses since March. We're not talking about risky startups. These were 30-year fixtures, gift shops, hardware, clothing. And once they're gone, it's hard to bring them back. The downtown starts to feel hollow." What binds these voices together isn't just economic frustration, it's a deepening sense of being forgotten. Many shop owners told us they've written to state representatives, tried to lobby for small business exemptions, or asked for help navigating tariff paperwork. Most say they got no reply. "We're not asking for handouts," Raymond said, "just a chance to compete." There's no single soundbite that captures this crisis. It's the soft frustration in Laurie's voice, the tired resolve in Angela's, the quiet sadness from Marcus and Elena. These aren't people looking to make headlines. They're just trying to make payroll, pay their bills, and keep the lights on. One shipment, one sale, 1 week at a time. There's no dramatic collapse, no Wall Street meltdown, no viral footage of shuttered factories. What's happening on Main Street is quieter, but no less consequential. It's a slow fade. One store here, one shop there, fewer lights on in the evening, fewer neighbors passing by. Tariffs were designed as a weapon in an economic battle. A way to push back against unfair trade practices, restore American manufacturing, and rebalance global commerce. But in small-town America, that policy goal feels abstract. What's concrete are the invoices, the empty shelves, the quiet shops with "for lease" signs in the windows. The irony is sharp. In trying to protect American industry, we've left some of the most American businesses exposed. The very people who kept the economy stitched together during the pandemic. Small retailers, local suppliers, independent shopkeepers now find themselves absorbing the costs of a fight they never asked to be part of. And what happens if they disappear? A few might shrug, say it's the cost of global competition. But for many communities, these shops aren't just economic units. They're landmarks, meeting places, job creators. They're where high school kids get their first job, where neighbors gather, where local donations come from. The deeper question is this: who are our trade policies really designed to protect, and who gets left behind in the fine print? Because in the end, tariffs don't just hit ports and spreadsheets. They hit real people. People trying to stay open. People trying to stay local. People trying to survive in places that rarely make national news, but make up the backbone of the country. And if they fade into silence, who will take their place? Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you found yourself nodding along, thinking of your own hometown, or maybe even your own business, you're not alone. These stories aren't just economic data points. They're real lives, real communities, real consequences. Tariffs may be written into federal law, but their impact is being felt in corner shops, rural storefronts, and mom-and-pop businesses from coast to coast. And while policymakers debate strategy, Main Street is running out of time and options. If you value stories like these, grounded, honest, and human, make sure to follow the show, leave a rating, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. We've got more real-world reporting and deep dives coming soon, from the cost of groceries to the hidden crisis in the rental market. Until next time, I'm your host. Stay safe, stay sharp, and keep asking the questions that matter.